What time is it? What time is it? What time is it? Right now!
Hi, sports fans. Kevin Casey here. This is Talkin' About Sports coming to you right now from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill. And we're having a great time here. And check out all of our great specials here at the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill at greatfood@neighborhoodgrill.com. Give them a like on Twitter and Facebook. In fact, give us a like on Twitter and Facebook at Talkin' About Sports. Let's introduce our all-star panel as always. Our senior statistician from CBS and ESPN, John Tobias, JT.
Thanks, Cal.
The voice of Winthrop basketball, Charlotte Knights broadcaster and Carolina Panthers postgame show host Mike Pacheco. Former Penn State player and Carolina Panther practice squad player and Emmy Award-winning producer.
2 times.
All the way down at the end from State
2
College.
times.
I said 2 times.
Okay.
2 times.
From all the way from State College, Pennsylvania via Memphis, Tennessee, San Francisco Giants fan himself, Reggie Walker. All right. Hope we got all that in
I'm trying to get as many jobs as Pacheco, though. He got them good ones.
That's why we're here, because Pacheco's got everything. He's holding the market hostage.
I wouldn't say that.
Yeah. Okay. Couple quick topics before we get in deep with any one in particular. A lot of news going on in the NBA, John Tobias, including James Harden. He's the guy we could all need to hit up for a loan. He's making a lot of money right now. Word is that the Knicks and Rockets are talking Carmelo Anthony. A lot of deals are going down in the NBA. What's your take on not only James Harden, but what's going on in the NBA right now?
It just doesn't stop, does it, in terms of the cash flow? It does not stop.
Which stops at my house.
Mine too, but not if you're an NBA player. And the thing about it is that it doesn't stop, and it's all boils down to the contract that ESPN and Turner more or less signed. It ended up being like a windfall for all of the players. Yeah. And Mike and Reg, the thing about it is that it's not just for the All-Stars. Like Otto Porter, just signed a contract, with Brooklyn. Washington matched it to where he's making almost $27 million for 4 years. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope just signed with the Lakers 1 year, $18 million. Otto Porter never averaged more than 13 points a game. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope has never averaged over 14 points a game. Says a lot.
But it's interesting too because the NBA it's almost like monopoly money now.
It is.
And it's you in the old days you'd say if a player was making $1 million or $2 million, you'd say that's a pretty good salary. Now you'd think the guy's a chump if he's making $1 million.
Well, it's got. You know what? I just made it. Guys, I'm out. I'm going to get some shots.
I mean, the Lakers had to replace Swaggy P, right? I mean, that's why they got, who they got. That's why they got Kentavious Caldwell-Pope.
I mean, this money is ridiculous.
It is.
I mean, I'm going to get some shots up after this. Trust me. But listen, when you think about, I can't get off this James Harden thing, and it's actually less about the contract and more about the totality of what he's got going on.
Right.
He's also got a $200 million Adidas deal. He's 27 years old, and he's basically somebody's on the hook for giving him $430 million. He's 27.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
I picked the wrong profession. but John, back to your point, this TV money right now, I'm telling you right now, these guys playing right now, they were born at the right time.
Yeah.
Because in about 10 years, it's going way back down. Remember, we used to always have those conversations about how Jordan never made more than $10 million until his last 2 years. Mm-hmm. We may see that again in the next 15 years where the money goes way back down because people aren't the whole cable thing and the subscribe, all that money it's in a weird flux right now.
Right.
And it's got to get figured out.
But isn't it kind of like a giant, and I hate to use the word pyramid scheme because it's obviously not that, but it is almost like there is a shelf life to a lot of mediums. We're seeing that with newspapers, we're seeing that with radio, we're seeing that with television now. And, it's almost like musical chairs maybe is the better way to put it. And who's going to be stuck sitting in the chair when the music stops as far as finding that next revenue source?
Well, think about this, though. And, Mike, you were leading into what I was just thinking. It's like, well, newspapers are gone by the wayside. Now it's websites. Well, cable, satellite, how long are they going to be around in their current state? We're doing something called a podcast right now, the Carolina's own sports podcast, your sports podcast, by the way. We're doing something different, okay?
Yep.
Hulu, Hot Sticks, or whatever they call them.
Fire Sticks, Roku, all that.
I mean, Roku. I mean, there's a lot of things that are evolving. It's almost day to day, year to year.
I could use some firewater.
Yeah.
Okay, so where's the money coming from?
Well, I'm gonna tell you something that's interesting, and that's I'm glad you asked that question because and the question I'm talking about is who's going to be standing there with the bag when the money's gone. I tell you who's not going to be, and that's Dan Gilbert. Because if you watch what he's doing, he's basically re-establishing order in that franchise, in the Cleveland Cavaliers. It seems like to me he's going to get his team back under the luxury tax.
Right.
And he's going to say, you know what? The Warriors in 3 years, they're going to cut a check for $40 million for luxury tax money, and the Rockets are going to pay this money, and all these teams are going to be paying these luxury tax bills.
Right.
I'll collect that check. That'll help pay my payroll. I'm going to stay in the positive because in 6 or 7 years, when this thing blows up, you're going to hear amnesty and people trying to get rid of contracts because they're going to be bloated from the TV money that all of a sudden isn't there.
Right, and that's what I was going to ask you because you bring up a good point. If he does that and he maintains, do you think that other owners will follow? Just like you made the point
Absolutely.
about, Jacob Blackham in terms.
But don't you think with LeBron you have to win now? Like you got to do everything you can to win now because he's not going to be there. You would think in 7 years.
I agree, but I think Dan Gilbert understands, like most of the world says, they're not going to beat Golden State. Number one, and number two, he's looking at it going, he can go ahead and leave now. I got my championship, which increased the value of my franchise, which I paid less than $500 million for. It's worth over $1 billion now.
You're saying Vince Carter may not be worth $8 million a year at age 40?
Hey, listen,
because Dan Gilbert may.
He's found the fountain of youth.
I ain't mad at Vince.
LeBron's going to walk if he's not going to get surrounded by a bunch of all-stars.
Of course.
Listen, but guess who's not
fine? He's fine with, okay, I got you your title. I'm out now. I'm a title chaser at this point. I'm a bounty hunter.
He's chasing titles.
And guess what? Dan Gilbert's going, I got my chip and I still got Kyrie. Somebody will come watch Kyrie. I'll sell enough tickets. I'll make money. That's what happens when you build your league based on players and not on teams.
Yeah.
That's the danger. That's the difference in the NFL and the NBA. The NFL, you go see the team. Yeah, you got stars like Tom Brady, Cam Newton, yada, yada. I get that. But when you hear people talk about football, the first thing out of their mouth is the team name. When you hear people talk about the NBA, the first thing out of their mouth is a particular player. People in Cleveland, they don't talk about the Cavs, they talk about LeBron. People in Cleveland, they talk about the Browns.
Speaking of the Cavaliers, David Griffin, the former GM, was ceremoniously let go. They're famous for not paying their executives. See Chauncey Billups right now. David Griffin withdrawing from the Knicks job. Is the Knicks Cavaliers, are either one of those jobs good right now for the money that they're getting paid? Now, I would take it, obviously, but in league circles, is that a good situation right now?
Well, if you're going to pay me like the Knicks paid Phil Jackson, then that's a good job. I don't care what you want me to do. If you're going to pay me $12 million and allow me to stink, cut the check.
Yeah, but I think that the thing about it is that I don't understand about the Knicks is that David Griffith, he brings cachet to the organization. Now, he's not what you consider like a splash. Well, I'm talking about in terms of like credibility, in terms of I guess I'm trying to find the right word, in terms of like what he's actually brought to the table. Like he has delivered, as an executive, he has something tangible. That's my word. He has delivered a championship under the GM title.
Right.
Phil Jackson hasn't. I think that's the big difference between the two.
Right. We could have won championships with some of the players that Phil Jackson had as coaches, right?
Right.
Well,
But the bigger issue with the Knicks, though, and you would think Cleveland's maybe a little bit more stable from an ownership standpoint, but with James Dolan, and he was out, the night of the draft, he was with his band playing. They're playing a couple sets.
Yeah.
He needs to quit playing music and worrying about Charles Oakley.
Well, no, I think it's like he's kind of guy that comes in and out. You know what I mean? Like he drops in, he maybe disrupts the whole place, and then he leaves for a while. Then he comes back in
charge of the women's team.
I think his decision making has to be called on.
Well, to your point, I like how you said that, but I'm gonna try to cash it this way. The problem is he's an inconsistent owner in that
he's consistently inconsistent.
Hands-on in a hands-off way.
Okay, well,
because he wants to control everything, but he's never there.
That's a good point. And we also can talk Gordon Hayward going to the Celtics, and maybe Rajon Rondo meeting with the Lakers. And of course, I'm heartbroken because Dwayne Dedmon leaves my San Antonio Spurs for a 2-year, $14 million contract with the Atlanta Hawks. We got that. We're just getting started. We've got that and so much more to come right here on Talking About Sports.
We are talking about sports here at the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill. Hope you check them out on Twitter. You can check us out on Twitter as well. Great discussion going on here But you know who's had a great discussion the last couple days? Major League Baseball. They have been very excited about what happened Monday, Tuesday with the Home Run Derby and with the All-Star game last night. A lot of excitement. Of course, the local angle has been the talk from the commissioners meeting on Monday where he said, you know what, Tampa Bay, Oakland, you guys need to get your act together as far as your stadium deals because we're thinking expansion. Montreal is excited, Mexico City, and he also mentioned Charlotte. So Charlotte could be in the mix for a Major League Baseball team. Reggie, I know it's kind of an exciting time for a lot of people. It's been the local talk radio has been all over it the last couple of days. Yeah. The big issue, though, to me is, you know, it's great if you want to bring a team in, but where are you going to put it?
And that's my big question. Where are you going to put that team? Now, we know, obviously, if they do this, we're probably talking a few years down the road. I'm guessing at least 4 or 5. So that gives you time to sort of figure it out. But in the landscape of the city of Charlotte, I'm not sure where you put a ballpark. And then that's just the ballpark itself. Then you talk about parking and other facilities. It starts to add up. And again, I mean, you think about some of the ballparks that have been built in the last 10, 15 years in Major League Baseball. You're talking about 40, 50, 60,000 seat ballparks. Yeah. That takes up a lot of space. And I'm just not sure where Charlotte can find that space right now within that the loop that is 277.
And JT, you've been here a long time. You know, we see the Hornets, obviously the Panthers. From a sponsorship standpoint, I think there'll be an interest in this team, but is there an interest on the corporate level? Is there an interest as far as, on the corporate side?
I definitely think so on the corporate side, but the thing about it is also to add to what Reggie was talking about in terms of the infrastructure, the one question that I would ask is Charlotte big enough as a city to have 3 professional sports franchises? Because obviously Charlotte has been thriving as a city in terms of population like every year. There has not been like a downward trend at all. But that's the one question that I would ask myself, especially, you know, when there is a time to where there are almost 3 sports going on when it gets to the point like September till we have football and you have baseball, and then training camp is about to start, you know, for the NBA. So that's what I would ask.
Now, Kevin, I think Charlotte's been here before. I mean, we saw this going back to the Giants back when in the old Knight Stadium days. The Twins were rumored to potentially be in the mix here. So is this another case of maybe Charlotte being the bridesmaid one more time?
I would hope not, Mike. We were working at a radio station at the time when the Twins were going through a situation about possibly relocating to Charlotte. So I think the answer is yes to all the above, except I don't think Charlotte could be a bridesmaid. I think that actually Charlotte could be a major player. I think the city can support a 3rd professional sports franchise. I think they can build a stadium within the 277 loop. The Knight Stadium, the best ballpark in all of minor league baseball, I think could be a good temporary housing for a major league team if it comes down to it. But I think you can build it. If they build it, they will come, right?
I agree. I buy that.
But I think that they can, and I think the trend is not 60,000 seat stadiums in baseball. Look at San Francisco, Pittsburgh, and some of these others, the Cincinnati. These are all stadiums in the 30s. I think you want a quaint, cozy, but distinctly your own stadium, unique for Charlotte with its curves and its porch. The walls, etc., the angles. I think Charlotte could be a very good destination. And Mike pointed out something. Maybe if you're Oakland, how long have they been in the mausoleum, the Oakland Alameda Coliseum, the O.Co Coliseum? Maybe the Oakland A's become the Charlotte A's, and the Tampa Bay Rays become the Montreal Expos, go to the National League, and maybe Florida goes to the American League. So everything has moving pieces. I think it all could happen. Money is the driver, and Commissioner Manfred has just put, as Mike said, everyone on the clock in Tampa and Oakland. I think it can happen, and I'd like to see it happen.
Well, let me ask
baseball in Charlotte.
The bigger question too, Reggie. Okay, so let's say maybe 5 to 10 years out, baseball says, you know what, we're ready to expand. We're ready to go to Montreal. We're ready to go to Charlotte. You're looking at the game right now, a lot of home runs. Guys aren't really putting the ball in play. You see a lot of strikeouts. Is the pitching going to be there? I think from the hitter standpoint, they'll be okay, but will there be enough pitching to add 2 more teams? Because now you're talking about going to 32 teams, and maybe, I guess, would be 4-team divisions would be the mix.
I'll say it this way. I think to your point, I understand exactly where you're going, but I think the way that college baseball is thriving right now could be the answer to that riddle. College baseball has done a great job over the last and listen, I'll be the first to admit maybe I'm over-speaking this because I didn't follow a lot of college baseball 8 years ago.
But it's hot now.
In the last 5 or 6 years, college baseball has become a hot commodity. More kids are willing to go. I think it's something like 16 of the main 21 guys last night on Tuesday night in the All-Star game played some form of college baseball, including Bryce Harper. Now, granted, he went to Southern Nevada. That's a whole other story. But all of these guys, more of these guys are playing college baseball, which means they're able to stretch their arms out in college and understand pitching once a week. They're able to come up with a regimen and a plan to figure out their bodies. Right. They're also understanding and getting a chance to learn how to pitch instead of be throwers and just try to throw heat or a whole bunch of breaking balls. They're better pitchers and less throwers coming out of the college baseball game. So I think that's going to be the answer to the riddle, how college baseball continues to evolve over the next 3 or 4 years.
And I think the youth scene, and Charlotte, it may be tough to judge just based on Charlotte, but it seems like it's a thriving youth scene right now. And if that's replicated, granted in the Southeast and in Texas and California, it's a little bit tougher in the Northeast to get excited about baseball and in the middle of winter.
Right.
Here you can go year round.
And just to put a bow on what Rady said, also with college baseball in terms of the players like really popping, let's not forget baseball is coming back for the Olympics for 2020. Yeah. So they're going to be back front and center. I'm going to throw a question back to you. So let's say if if the Rays and the A's don't get their act together, from an American city, what other American cities do you view as the biggest competition if those, respected teams don't get it together aside from Charlotte?
Actually, let me go international one more before we come back to the United States.
I know where you're going.
Mexico City.
Yes.
Mexico City is a big one. And I've heard rumors of, in the AAA level, maybe Havana getting a AAA team. So you could see a situation where maybe if Charlotte goes MLB, maybe Havana becomes a new team in the International League.
You got to get rid of communism first.
Well, I think,
Not from America, being realistic.
And the discussion about Mexico City has been the corporate money.
Right.
Is there enough corporate entities in Mexico City?
Is there enough security?
That team?
Is there enough security? Are you gonna go? Is it going to be armed guards at the stadium, or American tourists?
Have you been? Safe? Have you been to Mexico City before?
I'm too scared to go.
No, but to get back to JT's question, though,
man.
one city that gets named is Portland. If you're looking at West Coast, part of it is also going to depend on geographically how you're going to be able to fit this in, because
Las Vegas.
If you know what, Las Vegas, baseball to me would be the last of the 4 majors to go to Las Vegas.
I agree.
Football
go to Las Vegas. You're talking about MLB. Okay.
Yeah. I think NBA probably could be next. I think Major League Baseball would be the last to go to Las Vegas.
I think they're going to be last. And I think the only other city you could talk about can't happen because they're going through this fiasco right now. They just had all kinds of delays and whatnot in Nashville building their new ballpark for their minor league team. That's a city, again, that's on the come, if you will, in terms of maybe get looked at to get something else in terms of a professional sports franchise. But they just built, similar to Charlotte, they just built a ballpark for a minor league baseball team. How are you going to not to mention, they've already got a football stadium for the Titans. Vanderbilt has their own everything. Right. That's Predators. It becomes a lot of stuff that doesn't have a lot of dates in that city.
Right.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of American cities that are ready to step up, actually behind Charlotte.
But I mean, do you promise somebody, like it used to be in football, you want a new stadium? Well, we'll give you a Super Bowl. That'll help you raise money. An All-Star game. I think it did well for Miami. I think it did well for San Diego in the past. Mike, we had a good weekend, as you pointed out, for Major League Baseball. We got a couple. We got the Charlotte Knights. We have Danny Hayes in the minor league home run derby contest. Yon Moncada is tearing up AAA with the Charlotte Knights, or the Charlotte Pitmasters down the line. I still need some gear, by the way. I hear you have an in with Tommy V over there. But what's the latest on the Charlotte All-Star front?
Well, I can tell you about the Pitmaster stuff. $25, and you can have whatever shirt you want. That's $25.
So it proves my point. I have friends in low places.
You do have No,
of you guys.
It is an exciting time for the Knights. Obviously, the Pitmasters will be coming up this coming Saturday, and I know we talked a little bit about it last week on the show. It's kind of a trend now in minor league baseball. Teams are trying to rebrand themselves for a day, maybe 2 times a year, 3 times a year. If this is successful, you could see teams doing it multiple times, but not just the same. So in other words, it wouldn't just be the Pitmasters 3 times, And I'm kind of giving
else down the line.
And I'm giving something away because there might be something in the works this year that looks pretty cool. But we can't really. I can't really get too far into that. But it has been an exciting time for the Knights with Yohan Moncada. He's done a nice job. Danny Hayes was in the home run contest on Monday night. He made it to the second round, had 9 home runs in the first round.
Had Richie Schaefer.
Had 4 in the second. Richie Schaefer had 18. He made it into the second round as well.
It's impressive.
Providence High School.
Yeah, Providence High School.
Providence High School.
Yeah, he's done very well. But, it kind of blends back in. We're talking about, guys coming up. But I think one of the things that made the All-Star Game exciting and the Home Run Derby exciting is baseball has so many young stars now
Yes,
that
they did.
the young players and the young kids, the millennials, are starting to have players that they can get behind.
Because all the TV commercials, the Bryce Harpers, now Aaron Judge, wait till he starts getting on the commercials.
Let me
now,
tell you
what was more exciting? Seeing Bryce Harper talking to the play-by-play booth during the game because he had his mic in his back pocket. I hope he didn't have to slide. Or the making the selfie. Who was it? Nelson Cruz. Who was it, the selfie with the umpire? Or
it was Nelson Cruz.
Yeah,
Nelson Cruz.
with Joe
Now,
West.
to think about it, Mike, you were there. What if Joe Horn had one of the smartphones back then when he had the phone in the end zone at the Superdome when he put made the call on the Saints? I think that were all good moments last night.
But what's interesting? As much as those were liked, A-Rod walking around the infield got panned. That got panned. But how about George Springer from the Astros? They interviewed him early, and the reason why that is an exciting story is he has battled a lifelong stuttering issue.
Yes.
And so that was kind of like a crowning achievement for him to be able to do that and be very comfortable. I like that aspect of it. I thought that was a great addition to the broadcast, was being able to talk to the players, having the booth guys talking to the players.
Baseball did a really good job with creating an atmosphere of humanizing the players.
Yeah.
And then to add to it, there was a little drama in the game. It was a tie game, and a conversation about will it be a tie again, and then you get the home run from Robinson Cano, which again, one of those guys that's kind of a veteran, but he's still fairly young, right?
Yeah.
So you have that piece of it too. And then, the thing that I thought was really, really interesting, and JT, this is all your wheelhouse here, but apparently the American League and the National League are now even in terms of overall score in All-Star games.
That is impressive. That is
and run scored.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, that is right in my wheelhouse.
43, and 2. And then I don't know what the runs number is, but it's all the same.
It's even.
And you know what you mentioned earlier in terms of like how you think that baseball has done a really good job in terms of promoting the players and humanizing the players. You can tell by the ratings. Do you know that the Home Run Derby, their ratings almost did higher than the actual baseball game, All-Star game of last year?
Yeah.
Just the home run derby alone. And I don't know if it's because, in addition to what you said in terms of like, new players coming onto the scene like Aaron Judge, but it really makes a big case that baseball is starting to like come back again.
I think going to the bracket, I think timing the rounds and having that bonus round,
yes,
I think that was made that really fun because you really saw some enthusiasm. Sano from the Twins, he was the 8th seed. He goes out and launches bombs. Stanton was phenomenal. Judge has to hit 22 to 23 to come back to win it. I mean,
right, and that's the other key. They're getting their stars to play in the skills things.
Yeah.
Right. We always talk about how the NBA we never got some of the big matchups we wanted after the Jordan era. We never got Kobe against Vince. Well, I guess Kobe, whatever. But we never got those big matchups. We never got the LeBron versus whoever in the dunk contest. We never got those things. Whereas in baseball, guys are saying, yeah, I'll go ahead and do it. Bryce Harper didn't do the home run derby this year, but he's already said he's going to do it next year in front of the home fans.
Right.
That's important when you get those guys to commit to
Who's his team going to be next year? That's another story, Mike. And I would have liked to have brought back, you guys probably remember the NBA used to do the one-on-ones back when Nate Archibald and those guys, they used to play one-on-one back in the 70s. And so that was
but I do like the big three. I like the concept of the big three.
Big three is cool. Everybody except batting instructors and managers don't like this home run derby and the timing and everything because they think it's going to mess up guys' swing. So another great segment, guys. We got plenty more to go here on Talking About Sports. Welcome back to Talking About Sports from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill. Kevin Casey, John Tobias, Mike Pacheco, Reggie Walker. Our Twitter question of the day comes to us from Nashville, Tennessee, as Reggie was just pointing out, he was talking about how maybe the city of Nashville is not ready for baseball, but they are ready for Twitter questions. Ray Simone, 88 on Twitter says, can Keats really help NC State hoop, John Tobias?
Without question. I'm going to quote Rick Pitino when he said that he feels that NC State definitely hit a home run. Kevin Keats was at UNC Wilmington for 3 years. His overall record was 72-28. That is a 72% winning percentage. Before he got there, their previous record was 9-23. So by him being able to turn that program around,
thank Michael Jordan's buddy Buzz Peterson for that.
Hey, we can thank whoever, but
That's Markelle Fultz's record as a freshman at Washington.
I know. How about that?
The number one pick in the draft. The number one pick in the draft.
Yeah,
we'll leave that right there.
Yeah, to put it in perspective. But it lets you know that he can turn the program around. The thing about it is, my concern, Reg and Mike, is the patience that NC State needs to have, because, keep in mind the guy that he's replacing, Mike Godfrey, he was there for 6 years. He took them to the NCAA tournament the first 4 years. Year number 2, he didn't even survive. He didn't finish the season.
Right.
So I know that their current AD is going to be retiring soon, Debbie Yao. So whoever the new AD will be, hopefully they will go ahead and preach patience. Because one thing I can tell you, whenever UNC and Duke, they're always going to be good. But whenever NC State and Wake Forest, your Big Four, that really makes the state of basketball in terms of North Carolina so much better.
Absolutely. But the problem with NC State fans is they have this expectation like it's a Big 3 when it's a Big 2. We've seen this for years now. They can be very good. Obviously, they've won a national championship there. There was a lot of excitement there in the Jim Valvano years. But, when you look at just what just happened over the last, 5 years, that's a legitimate program, and that wasn't good enough for them. And so it's almost like their desire and their enthusiasm is great, but it exceeds maybe reality, and they have to maybe realize where they are. They don't know their role. You're playing for 4th place behind Duke, North Carolina, Louisville with Rick Pitino, Jim Boeheim, and Syracuse. So maybe you're playing for 5th place in the ACC. But I think what you might be seeing, though, and I think this is why, Reggie, the Keats hiring is exciting to me, is because if he can be that guy that gets them into that, the top, make it a top 3, Roy Williams isn't going to be coaching forever. Coach K's not coaching forever.
Right.
So it's almost like I think he could be coming at a good time, because he could be the springboard for that next generation of coaches for those 3 schools.
Well, Coach K looks young. Doesn't he have a gray hair?
Well, you gotta find a way to connect with kids as soon as possible in this coaching thing. But before I make that point, JT, getting back to your point, it's about patience, okay? And the best example I can use is Frank Beamer at Virginia Tech. Through his first 6 years, they were more than 10 games under 500. They stayed patient. You have to stay patient and let them build it. Now, I'm not saying you got to be terrible for 10 years. That's not what I'm suggesting.
Right.
But you can't expect Kevin Keats to win the ACC in year 2. Now, I do think he's going to do a great job in terms of recruiting. He spent more than a decade off and on at Hargrave Military Academy. He's been with Rick Pitino and brought great players to Louisville. So he understands how to get players. But you have to give him time to get those players and put that thing together, and you can't expect the world in 2 years.
All right, let's take a look at Carolina news and notes. Now, Deshaun Watson drafted by the Houston Texans, 12th in the first round. The Texans moved up for him, but he's still making his presence felt in Tigerland, and that's because he's the Anthony McDevlin ACC Male Athlete of the Year. So congratulations to Deshaun
kid.
Watson. Yeah, great job for him. Now, the all-inclusive tailgate service, Tailgate Guys, they're coming to Chapel Hill. Now, essentially what this is you just show up, you tailgate, you go into the game, they take care of everything else.
I'm going to Chapel Hill right now.
I'm with you, Reg.
Let's go. You're driving though,
Let's
right?
do it. Yeah, I got you. I got you, kid. No doubt.
DeAngelo Williams making some news, not noise. Well, maybe some noise. He's making some noise in wrestling, right? Now, his tenure with the Panthers ended maybe not in the best way. He's had a nice run with the Steelers. But what's next for DeAngelo Williams? Well, he was with Impact Wrestling recently. I think everybody's seen the clips of that. Now, I don't think he rivals the career of a future NWL Hall of Famer in Kevin Casey.
Well, I think he's going to exceed that. But right now, he's got to take care of the tasks at hand. I've seen the matches that he's been involved in. He looks great. His body's in great shape. The moves that he's undertaking, I think the matches that he's been involved in, they look good. He's doing his part. And Mike, you and I have covered the Carolina Panthers for many years, and I remember more than 20 but I remember the years that DeAngelo was here. He knew about my wrestling background. He would always talk to me in the locker room about, hey, what's going on in wrestling? And Reg, he's a Northern Mississippi, Memphis guy.
Yeah.
And he knew friends of mine, the late Tommy Rogers, Coco Beware, Honky Tonk Man, guys of the Memphis area.
Jerry Lawler.
Jerry the King Lawler. He knew all these guys. Jerry Lawler came to the Knights game
he was
recently.
here just a couple weeks ago.
So, he's always been a guy that's loved not just hunting, fishing, probably squirrel hunting if he's ever gone to Arkansas. But I think he looked great, and I think he has a future in professional wrestling after he decides to retire from football. I mean, he's already crossed 4 teams off his list: the Cowboys, the Jaguars, the Browns, and the Panthers, due to reasons that he explains online. You could look those up, but he wouldn't be the first guy that's ever entered the squared circle in professional wrestling. You go back to like Bronco Nagurski, and then you come then you come to a guy I knew very good personally, Wahoo McDaniel, the Big Cat Ernie Ladd.
Yep.
A lot of guys made more money in wrestling than they did in NFL back.
Goldberg was a former Panther,
an original Carolina Panther.
Lawrence Cole, a.k.a. Lex Luger.
Yep. You would have
Brian Pillman, Cincinnati Bengals.
Flying Brian Pillman.
I got so many stories I could tell you but we couldn't air them right now. When it came to guys like Lex Luger and Brian Pillman, how Wahoo McDaniel saved me from a terrible beating at the hands of Brian Pillman one time, but that's for another day. But I think he can. DeAngelo Williams, Mike, can obviously do it. JT, you're a longtime wrestling fan here in the Carolinas. I think it'd be a natural transition. He has a good physical size. He's very thick and muscular and athletic.
Yes.
His height is equivalent and on par to maybe Chris Jericho. So I think he could definitely do well in the squared circle.
I co-sign with you. I thought that he looked really good in terms of physically, and in terms of the moves that he put. It definitely brought back a lot of memories. You made me think about something because
he needs to stay clear of Bobby Lashley in Impact Wrestling. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah, he might
no doubt.
stay away from that guy.
He may catch a beat down with Bobby.
No, he would.
Yeah. The thing
Division
about it
II
is,
national champion, all military champion Bobby Lashley, who fights in Bellator as well as Impact Wrestling. So he needs to watch it. But I like his look, as you pointed out.
Right. You know what I'm trying to figure out though is that we know, like the guys that you mentioned before, who went from professional football to wrestling. But in terms of recently, Pac-Man, it was a stint with Pac-Man. It was like a quick stint like with Gronk. But I'm trying to think of the last time a professional football player made the full transition.
I'll tell you
from football. Talk to me.
It's actually the guy that was his teammate in this particular match, Quinn Ojanaka, a.k.a. Moose, was an offensive lineman for the Atlanta Falcons. That's where he came from.
Okay.
And getting back to that point, what I thought was impressive, and I've heard different stories, 21 days, 3 weeks, whatever, but one of the reports I heard was that DeAngelo Williams only trained for 3 days.
Wow.
I was able to do those things in 3 days. I don't know how true it is.
Did it seem like
if he was able to do that with 3 days of training, Big Kev, you know better than me. That's a feat.
If he did that in 3 days, he's a miracle worker. He's going to part the Red Sea coming up soon. I just know that usually doesn't happen. If you talk back to the old days, JT, the Mid-Atlantic Wrestling School with Ole and Gene Anderson, Buzz Sawyer,
Minnesota
and those guys, Minnesota Wrecking Crew, my good friend Brad Anderson, that used to help train these guys. You have to pay a fee just to get, as we'd say, get stretched and get a lot of physical beatings put on you. And then if you were tough enough to hang around, they would not only take your money, but they would keep you around and train you, and you could hang out with, and you could learn more from guys like Nelson Royal and some of those guys. So I think that he is making strides. And if he made that kind of transition, and I think Impact as well as WWE are doing very well with their developmental leagues. Ricky Steamboat is doing a lot with their developmental guys in Florida. Impact is doing a lot of good things with Moose and now with DeAngelo Williams. I think that the hats off go to Impact Wrestling for their training, and I think they're going outside of the box, bringing in these guys who have name value and athletic ability.
But I think you're missing the third component to all this, and that is he has the entertainment value.
Yes.
He's a great personality. He knows how to use the camera.
Yes.
He knows how to use his celebrity. He understands, because he's been such a huge wrestling fan for forever, he understands the entertainment angle and how to create storylines. So to me, like the other stuff I think you have to have, but the fact that he has the ability to be an entertainer, I think that's what's really exciting.
Absolutely. And I'm going to tell you something. I don't know if I've seen the clip multiple times. The way he set himself up with the bow and the whole thing before he hit that standing moonsault, That's understanding where you are.
It's showmanship.
Understanding where right.
Yeah.
That's the charisma that you need in that sport.
Yeah.
Well, as they would say in wrestling, we're taking it home, at least for this segment. We're here at the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill. This is Talking About Sports. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Talking About Sports from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill. Kevin Casey, and we have our great discussion here with NBA basketball with the Charlotte Hornets and Summer League.
Hold on. We got to talk about something else first, because you are a Hall of Famer. You're going to be a Hall of Famer.
I'm not right now, but I'm heading in that direction.
No, but when they talk about the Hall of Fame and people have been announced, you are. I know you have to wait for the official induction, but
what's up with
when's this?
Do I get a seat at the dinner?
You got to pay your own trans up there for the dinner.
Now, what color is the jacket? Do you get it?
I got to talk to William Wilson about that.
There you go. You're talking to the right man.
I know I'm talking to the right man. We were talking about a few things. Maybe I can get one of those suits that Conor McGregor had. Those things that had the custom words on it.
No, you need one of like Cam's jumpers.
Well, I don't know about that. Adrian Adonis may have worn that back in the day. But it's the NWL, the National Wrestling League, their Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. It's coming up in October 21st. The NWL House of Pain Pro Wrestling Federation, the leading independent pro wrestling organization in all of independent professional wrestling. I'm honored to be going in there with some of my colleagues, like Tom Brady, knew him as Johnny Gunn in WCW. He was Salvador Sincere in the WWE. The late Ivan Koloff, who was a mentor the Russian Bear, was a mentor of mine, took me under his wing, went to his school in Indian Trail, North Carolina. Other names, Casey Carlisle, a top women's wrestler, Mike King Kalua, a top independent pro wrestler, Dave the Wave McAllister, one of the greatest referees of all times, now works for Radio 1. So I'm honored to be joining that group and many more. John Rambo, who was a top star in the Pacific Northwest and the NWL. So I'm just glad to be going in there with people like John Rambo and everyone in the NWL.
That's a good list, brother. That's a good list.
That's a good list.
It's a great list, especially looking at people.
How'd you get on there?
I don't know. I was lucky because I was managing guys like the Iron Sheik, the Honky Tonk Man, and people like that along, and Rick Rude along the many
ravishing one.
Yeah, I was just lucky there, and I was along for the ride, and I contributed, did my part to cause many a riot during the many main events for the NWL.
Well, it pays to be rude.
Well, not anymore. At least not lately. Charlotte Hornets Summer League, JT. What do you like about them? What have we seen so far? And are you excited about some of these guys maybe sticking on the main roster or going to Greensboro or whatever?
I am. The one guy that really stuck out to me was Trevion Graham. I know he played
my man, VCU.
Right, and
he needs more time. I told Coach Clifford to give him more playing time.
We were talking and doing the break about this VCU connection. With Trevion Graham, Briante as well. They both played well in the Summer League.
All he needs is more time.
They bring that havoc defense, to the NBA, and like I said, you can never set like too high of a premium on defense. So he averaged 17 points, 8 rebounds a game. Let's not forget about Dwayne Bacon. I thought that he did really well also.
Sure it's not Dwayne Wade? I'm just asking.
I'm positive.
Okay.
Right. I'm positive. He averaged 15 points. And guys, like I said,
Frank the Tank playing because he needs some playing time. He needs to work on a few things.
Yeah, he does, but I think that he's past the Summer League part. But, to segue into the 15 points a game in terms of Dwayne Bacon, I mentioned before, guys, he can score. There was one game that I covered last year to where he had scored like 18 straight games. I mean, I think that he definitely has potential to stick on the team for sure.
Well, and that's the fun thing about Summer League is it's tough to really gauge, what these guys can do in the NBA, but it is. Let's face it, this is the time of year where there's really not much going on. There is Major League Baseball, but the regular playoffs are done in the NBA. Training camp's not really here yet, so it's a good opportunity to kind of get a little of an appetite for training camp for basketball, because that's coming up in about 6-8 weeks.
Right, and the thing I get out of, and I akin Summer League to spring football and those types of things, is how are guys processing information. And one thing that I thought looked really good from a Hornets Summer League standpoint was you didn't see a lot of the same rotational errors on defense. You didn't see a lot of the same bad shot selection type situations. You saw guys figuring it out from the first mistake. You know what? I'm not doing that again. You could tell they were being coached. You could tell they were understanding what was going on. So to me, that was a positive. And then the other thing I saw for a guy who's probably going to end up in the D League or G League, I'm sorry. Listen, the commitment that Shemet Karnowski has made to his body and leaning his body out, improving his athleticism slightly, moving his feet a little bit better. I enjoyed watching that piece of the games because you could tell he understood that there's going to have to be some changes made with the way the NBA is set up.
JT, Dwayne Bacon, the 3-year contract with the Hornets, according to Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN, is that a guaranteed 3 years? Is it 1 year guaranteed with some partials? And if so, is he going to be like maybe a 13th, 14th, 15th guy inactive, but maybe playing some in Greensboro, some with the Hornets?
To be determined. I'm not a psyche, but I can tell you in terms of the contract.
You know Miss Cleo?
I don't.
You didn't say the Holiday Inn Express last night?
I figure you did. No, I did not do that either. I did not do that either. But one thing I can tell you is that the contracts have changed because years ago, you had a bigger advantage if you happen to be drafted in the second round, because I remember like Carlos Boozer, Gilbert Arenas.
Agent Zero.
There you go. There you go. And the thing about it is, at the time, they were very disappointed to where they weren't drafted in the first round. But the benefit is that if they were able to ball out, they could become like an unrestricted free agent, and they could go ahead and earn their money right away, as opposed to, you know, like if you would like drafted like in the first round, because of course you have like the 4-year guarantee contract.
Malcolm Brogdon. He's the guy that's going to be a second round, the rookie of the year.
I called it, though.
I know
right?
you did, and I said it.
Okay.
I said it with you.
You did. You gave me my props.
I said it the day I was getting ready to say it, but you said it first, and I propped you. You did say it.
Right.
Second round guy. He's going to get a good contract before a lot of these guys who have are still under the first year contract.
I'm looking forward to seeing Bacon battle the VCU guys for some time on the wing off the bench. I mean, I think this is a guy that. I think what the Hornets have done is create competition in camp.
Yeah.
And to where if you're not playing well, they can sit you down because somebody else can go play.
Right. Jeremy Lamb.
Whether it's Graham, whether it's Weber, whether it's Bacon, we know what Batum can do. You got Kemba, you got Carter Williams. They've created on the perimeter a lot of wiggle room for themselves to where if they're not getting consistency from guys, there's going to be a problem. And you're going to have to sit next to Coach Cliff if you can't play on a consistent level because there's another guy who's ready to play.
Mike, do you like the Michael Carter Williams signing? And I kid Jeremy Lamb. I went to college with his dad, Rolando Lamb, one of the great VCU basketball players of all times. But Michael Carter Williams now with Dwayne Bacon. The Hornets really have a good roster on paper, Mike, and I think they play hard for Coach Cliff.
Well, I think what I'm really looking forward to is maybe next time we do the show is ordering the Dwayne Bacon Burger here at Dilworth Neighborhood Grill. I think that'd be a good.
I'm doing it.
We might have to go with that. No, Michael Carter Williams. I think it's a good situation for him to be a guy that maybe can kind of recharge his career a little bit here. Playing with Kemba, the Hornets are going to need some backup minutes. Some good solid minutes. I think he's a guy that's going to be able to do that. And look, Coach Clifford has shown that he's done a good job with veteran players.
Yep.
And it gets them to buy into what he wants them to do. So I think that's what's pretty exciting about that.
And I love Carter Williams' size.
And hey,
to add a guy with that kind of size, considering the fact that
Monk is 6'3", and
you got a Kemba smaller guy. Monk is a smaller kind of guard. To add a big guy like that, a bigger guard, and Bacon a bigger guard, I think is going to bode well with MKG, and you still got Lamb. There's a lot of ways you can tinker with this lineup and get production from guys.
What is big is ACC Media Day, and it's coming up, and we're going to have a presence talking about sports and ADSN. We're going to have a presence at ACC Media Day. We'll talk more about that coming right back on Talking About Sports.
Thanks to all of you for being here for our 46th annual ACC Football Kickoff. It's great to see such an excellent crowd after such an excellent year.
I feel like there's a lot of great teams in this conference, and it's up for grabs.
I'm not really caught up in the hype. I don't really look at all that stuff. I just try to, do the dirty work, do what I got to do.
Even though you're not out there, you can still have an influence, a role on the team.
It'll be challenging for other opponents, who playing against us. They'll never know what's coming.
If I want to, look pretty and throw touchdown passes, I got to be able to take hits. So that's just the love that I have for the game.
When you look at the collective accomplishments illustrated behind me, from the announcement of our extended grant of rights to winning team national championships, including for only the 10th time in NCAA history and the 3rd time in ACC history, capturing both the football and men's basketball titles, in the same year. I think it's pretty obvious the past year certainly was one of the league's most successful years and possibly the most successful year that our league has ever had.
Welcome back to Talking About Sports from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill. Kevin Casey, John Tobias, Mike Pacheco, Reggie Walker. ACC Media Day in full effect. ADSN is all over it. We've got the sights and sounds about that. And the ACC, their championship game, politics aside, we're going to have a championship game at Bank of America Stadium again this year. Thank you. I missed those last couple of paydays. The Clemson Tigers defending ACC champions and NCAA champions. I know we talked at the Clother Classic. We talked to our good friend Perry Tuttle recently, but you got to like what Dabo Swinney is doing. He's got speed at every position. He's got young guys. He has to replace a lot of guys, but that's the bad news. The good news is he's got a lot of young guys who look good in spring who are ready to go.
They're getting to the point now to where they're like your typical powerhouse, programs to where they reload. Mm-hmm. They don't rebuild, they reload. They constantly bring in 4 or 5-star recruits. I think that the sky's the limit for Clemson for the next 2 or 3 years, even though they are losing a legend in Deshaun Watson.
Well, it's hard to lose a guy like him, obviously a very explosive player. I think they lose about 11 or 12 starters overall. And a fairly manageable schedule. Auburn will be kind of their big home game. They'll start out with Kent State. Auburn's going to be the second game. Then they kind of get into that ACC schedule. And then they'll end up, of course, with South Carolina. But the big question is going to be, and it's going to be until this is answered, and it's going to be answered in games, but who's going to be that guy, or how are they going to replace that production of Deshaun Watson?
That's a big question. There's a lot of passing and running. Do they have the heir apparent? Because Deshaun Watson was an heir apparent. Do they have the next guy ready to go to take
Well, they've done a nice job of replacing guys in the past. I mean, they've done a good job of building depth there overall. So
they have. And the quarterbacks they have, listen, they've got a couple of guys back there, whether you talk about a guy like Kelly Bryant, a guy like Hunter Johnson, Zarek Cooper as well. They've got a few guys back there that physically have the talent. But again, it's going to come down to getting the reps, getting the snaps. And listen, this is the same conversation we had to have at some point when it was Taj Boyd.
Sure.
We had to have the same conversation with Deshaun Watson. I'm not saying these guys are those guys, but it doesn't matter where you are or what the situation is. Guys have to get snaps. Experience is not free. It has to happen organically. So that's going to be an important piece for them. And I think the other piece for them, listen, you don't win championships without winning in the trenches. Mm-hmm. I thought Clemson's defensive line was dominant last year. I expect Christian Wilkins to continue that. But guess what? Now as a junior, as a third-year player, he's the leader of that front four.
Right.
He's not just the young kid that can run around and wreak havoc. He's also got to get guys lined up, make sure guys are where they're supposed to be, keep guys gap integrity, where it's supposed to be on that defensive line. Because if that defensive line is not as good as it was last year, this team is not going to win a championship with the lack of experience at the quarterback position.
And you have a Florida State team that's going to bring back 10 guys on defense. So that's going to be an interesting battle because you think Louisville's going to be in the mix for the Atlantic Division along with Clemson. So, it's not only how they're going to respond internally, but there's some other good teams just in their own division in the ACC.
DeAndre Francois of Florida State, I think, is going to be the next big thing that's coming out of the ACC in terms of quarterback. And
if they keep him upright, because last year that was their problem. They couldn't keep that kid up. He took more shots.
Well, you're not blitzing anymore, Reg. But you got guys. You got a couple guys from Charlotte playing for Duke. I like Coach Cutcliffe. What he's got Daniel Jones at quarterback, Byron Fields for the corner. Both guys from Charlotte. They've got several guys from Monroe, North Carolina. They've got a very good pipeline from Monroe High School. My son played against that school. Played against the guy from Duke plays for the Redskins now, Jamison Crowder, who's a tremendous human being as well as a great football player. So I think Duke's got a lot of stuff going on. North Carolina, the Tar Heels, our tailgate's going up there. It's a great place. Their sports information staff, Kevin Best and Steve Kirsten do a great job over at UNC. So I think the ACC, obviously you have to peg in Clemson and Florida State as your favorites 1 and 1A, but I think the rest of the ACC is wide open.
I'm going to take it a step further. Sorry, Reg.
Go ahead.
I'm going to take it a step further. And if you're an SEC fan, I think that you're going to probably turn this podcast off, possibly. But
Jamar Nesbitt from South Carolina may not like what you're going to say. Is that what you're saying?
No. I got a great stat for you, and because it's right in my wheelhouse. And like Jay-Z said, numbers don't lie. Check the scoreboard. But I really do think that the ACC is the best football conference in the country. I say it because, they've won a national championship 2 of the past 5 years, Heisman Trophy winner. And the big stat, Mike and Reg, is this. They were 10-4 against the SEC last year, including 4-1 in the postseason. So, you can say what you want.
Drop the hammer.
But
numbers don't lie.
Drop the hammer.
Numbers do not lie.
I'm going to go out on a limb, and so I'm going to say something right now. Duke's passing defense will be in the top 20 in the nation this year.
Even though David Cutcliffe is an offensive mind.
That defense, you already mentioned Fields at one corner. Another kid from Charlotte, Mark Gilbert, plays the corner on the other side. He was a true freshman last year. He's figuring it out. Let me tell you something. That defensive secondary at Duke is going to be really good. I don't expect to see a lot of people throwing the football around on that Duke defense this year.
Well, and they lost a lot of close games last year.
They did.
So, and they had their first ever win over Notre Dame. They won against North Carolina last year. So North Carolina, to me, is an interesting story because they have a quarterback they have to replace as well, in Mitch Trubisky. The other schools that I think two need to turn the corner.
Mitch or Mitchell?
I know. I go
Mitch.
I go with
Mitch at North Carolina.
Mitch.
Right.
Yeah, but I think 2 schools that I think have some issues in turning the corner: NC State with Dave Doran, right, and Wake Forest with Dave Clawson.
Yes.
Those, because you look at the bottom end of the ACC,
I
there's
think
so much churn
Wake
in there,
Forest
in that.
is closer than NC State is, and I think Dave Doran's on a 1-year deal. If he doesn't turn things around this year, as we pointed out in basketball, that's not a very patient fan base. I think Dave Doran, if they don't maybe go at least 7 wins, he's going to be looking for work. But I like what Clawson's doing at Wake Forest. Duke has a new press box, by the way. I took that in. And that Wallace Wade Stadium, what a great field. If you guys have ever been to Wallace Wade Stadium, I think it is small in terms of attendance numbers, but it's a great little cozy, quaint atmosphere. Art Chase does a great job at the sports information at Duke University. And
are you sponsored by the SIDs?
Yeah.
He's like a race car driver.
I'm trying to help.
Yeah, when you talk about Duke,
King of media relations
up at Wake Forest does a great job as well. And they have at BB&T Field is a great venue to watch football. So I think there's a lot of good football in the state of North Carolina in the ACC. You'd agree, John Tobias?
Absolutely. Like I said before, numbers don't lie. The 10-4 against the SEC, like I said, 4-1.
I thought Nick Bakay used to say that.
Well, I'm talking about Sean Carter. I don't know about Nick Bakay. Matter of fact, Nick Bakay, that's a blast of the past. Yeah.
Boy.
No, but I think the thing about it is, and like I said, the one thing I do want to mention now that we brought this up, that no one is talking about Lamar Jackson, even though he won the Heisman.
Right, he's returning Heisman.
You're right.
Right, if you talk about guys, top-level quarterbacks, there's the kid from Wyoming. They talk about Josh Rosen from UCLA.
That guy from Wyoming is really good.
He is good. And then they talk about Sam Darnold from USC. Lamar Jackson isn't even mentioned anymore. Is it because the attention span is short nowadays, Reg? Or help me out as to why no one's talking about
you're not seeing the video, and the way they finished the season wasn't great.
Right.
A lot of that had to do with all of a sudden that we realized that offensive line wasn't that good. And the other piece of it is, that kid, some of the things he did early in the season were just unbelievable.
Like video game numbers.
It was insane. But let me tell you something about Lamar Jackson, and even more importantly, his coach, Bobby Petrino. They're going to
don't get on a motorcycle with him.
That's a whole nother story.
Come on,
but they're going to get him to where, and they did this last spring, and they did this in spring 2016. So I'm sure they did it in spring 2017. They basically did not allow him to run around. They made him stay in the pocket regardless, so he could learn how to read the defense. And you could see the maturation from late freshman year, because he didn't start the whole year, from late in his freshman year to his sophomore year. So can you imagine now he's gotten a full season of snaps and another spring to work on this. This kid, I think, will have an even better year as a passer. I think we're going to see his rushing numbers come down a little bit and be more normal. But I think we're going to see him have a better year as a passer.
And we're just getting started with the ACC as the media days are in full swing. Mike, up your wheelhouse, the Carolina Panthers. You host their post-game show. Training camp at the end of the month. We'll be back with more Talking About Sports. Welcome back to Talking About Sports. Kevin Casey, John Tobias, Mike Pacheco, Reggie Walker, coming to you from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill.
I'm hungry.
Later this month, Carolina Panthers begin in
Dwayne Bacon Burger.
Spartanburg. It's very cool down there in Spartanburg. Late July, Mike Pacheco, you're down there a lot. You host the Carolina Panthers post-game show with our good friend Brett McMillan.
Yep.
What do you expect from the Carolina Panthers? What are some of the highlights that you're looking forward to for training camp coming off this year? We got a lot of offensive weaponry. What are you looking forward to?
Well, I think the first thing you're going to want to look at is, and it's probably going to be later in training camp than earlier in training camp, but how is Cam coming back from the offseason late shoulder surgery? They tried to rehab it, realized they couldn't do that, so then they had to go in and do some work. So it'll be, again, later to see how he's throwing. I think Christian McCaffrey is going to be one of the things that all eyes are on. And then what about Matt Khalil? Is he going to be able to be the guy that everyone thinks he can be? Because I think they're putting a lot of stock in him being able to step in and being a big player on that offensive line.
I agree, and I think it comes down to the offensive line, the level of success this team's going to have in 2017.
Yeah.
And listen, we talked earlier about Florida State and DeAndre Francois. Listen, the video you saw of Francois getting hit on a regular basis looked about the same thing as you saw Cam Newton getting hit on a regular basis. Cam Newton took a lot of shots last year, mostly. Well, I shouldn't say
cortisone shots later in the year.
Enough of them out of the pocket, but plenty of them in the pocket as well. And if you can't keep your quarterback, and I don't care who you are in the NFL, any level of football, if you can't keep your quarterback upright, it's going to be hard to win games. Because, listen, I got all the respect in the world for Derek Anderson, but there's a reason why you're the backup quarterback to begin with.
So
if your backup has to play, that's not good.
Do you subscribe to the Burt Reynolds philosophy in the longest yard? You must protect your quarterback.
Absolutely correct.
Right,
Absolutely correct.
Well, I think the number last year, Kevin, was right around 20 or 21 points. Like, you have to score in the NFL. It's not, you know, the days of thinking you can hold a team to under 10 points.
13 to 10, that's over.
Those are over. I mean, with the rules changes and with mobile quarterbacks now, you got to be able to score. That's a big part of the NFL game. Even though the Panthers will still have probably, I would imagine everybody consensus here, but they'll still be a top 10 defense.
Yes.
But you still have to be able to score in the NFL.
Right.
And NFC South, if you think about it, guys, there's some beasts on the other side. You have your Vic Beasleys, you have your Gerald McCoys. If you don't, knuckle up and be ready for those guys, Cam can be in for another bad year.
And listen, call it what it is. There's a reason why the premium is placed on tackles on offense and pass rushers on defense.
Well, Reg,
because they control the game.
Yeah.
Furthering that point, the league now seems to be a league of quarterback, wide receiver, tight end on offense, defense, defensive end, outside linebacker, corners on defense.
Yeah.
So it's all about the exciting game changers, guys who can sway the momentum. I mean, if Cam Newton doesn't get enough blocking, he's going to be on the $100,000 pyramid more frequently. It was $10,000 when I was coming up. Now with inflation, it's inflation. It's $100,000.
Yeah. Right. Listen, if you can't keep, the game of football is no longer 3 yards in a cloud of dust.
Right.
So if you don't have guys, and here's the other piece of it: if you can't go get the quarterback, you better have Deion Sanders and Tim McKyer on the defensive backfield.
T-Mac, my man.
Because if not, you going to get beat.
That's what they would call.
And the Panthers corners, while I think they're going to be pretty good, they're still young, which means you're going to have guys that can go get the quarterback. And I think they have guys that can go get Peppers. Listen, I still think Peppers, especially as a situational pass rusher, can still go get the quarterback. Yeah. So I like what they have up front. But on the flip side of that, on offense, because to your point, you got to score, especially in this division. Think about the other quarterbacks in this division. You got Jameis Winston, who's on the way. We know what Drew Brees is, and we saw what Matt Ryan just did. Mm-hmm. With all due respect to every player on that Panther defense, these quarterbacks in this division, they're going to score points. It's just going to happen. And
none of that, but when you're scoring points, you're also controlling the clock. Time of the possession, controlling the clock, and that helps your defense. And if you keep what did we see last year when that defense was on the field over and over again? You don't wear down. It's just natural.
It's part of it.
So kind of goes hand in hand. Playing complementary football is, I think, what we're going to want to see. The offense, they both have to be doing their jobs, and then of course they need to have good special teams.
We're going to be down at warm. I can tell you from firsthand experience. Training camp is warm. Reg, you were there as a player.
Woo!
What was Spartanburg like?
Hot.
You would like to have gone to one of those training camp kickoff parties, wouldn't you?
I would have liked. Yes, it was hot, man. Listen, let me tell you something. There is nothing worse than, well, now it's a little bit, not with all due respect to these guys.
They give you water back then?
Well, the double sessions aren't.
Yeah,
Drink out of one of those little silver ladles out of the bucket?
It was a whole lot different back then, but, hey, that's more than a decade ago. The guys did a good job in the new CBA. That's what that is, because I'm going to tell you something. You go in 2 days in that heat, it takes somebody. Now, but again, that's also if a guy's out of shape or a guy's a little heavy with his weight, those 2 days usually fixed that problem back then.
Maybe you needed the old hyperbaric chamber from Dan Morgan.
No, didn't need that. You got that weight off pretty quick in that room.
Great stuff as always, guys. We'll come back with more from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill right here on ADSN Talking About Sports. Welcome back to the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill. This is Talking About Sports. Kevin Casey along with John Tobias, Mike Pacheco, Reggie Walker. Real quick before we break here, the MLS may not get its notoriety everywhere, but I've heard the Mecklenburg County Commission, the city of Charlotte discussing possible stadium venues. Where's it going to go? And as we pointed out, does it either have to be in the 277 loop or nearby? And what has to happen?
Yeah, I think obviously the big issue is where you're going to put that stadium. They're talking about Memorial Stadium right now, either renovating it or tearing it down and building a whole new thing. For me, it's going to come down to cost. And where is the money going to come from? This is a public policy discussion.
Ted DiBiase's not paying for it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, obviously the more Marcus is willing to put up, the better it is, I think, on the back end. Because I don't know if there's an appetite for spending over $100 million for a stadium that might not get used that often. Now, Reggie, I know it could be a situation where they do some high school games and maybe the Shrine Bowl and things like that. But it still has to be enough multi-use to justify that cost.
Yeah, and I think that's the important piece. Is I think you got to, for a city that, just put up some money to help the Hornets out and probably going to do some more with, there's this whole long-term plan with the Panthers. So you're asking people to keep coming up with money for stadiums. So I think you're going to have to find a way to explain how all the uses are going to come back. But the biggest thing is how many dates are you going to get out of this thing?
JT, I know you want to give a special shout-out to the Lake Norman Little League 6- and 7-year-old baseball all-stars, state champions after finishing 12-0.
Yes.
The all-star tournament culminating in the state championship victory in Sylva, North Carolina. I know you want to give them a special shout-out.
Yeah, I've lived in the Lake Norman-Davidson area since 2009, and I love it. So I'm glad that they're more or less like representing and holding the northern part of Mecklenburg County down. Absolutely.
Are you going to throw out the first pitch next year for opening day?
I'm not as big as you. I'm not being inducted into the Hall of Fame, so I think they're going to probably ask for me.
I'd settle for the Charlotte Pitmasters, man. That's what I want.
But maybe one day I'll be on the come up like you.
Well, you can always be put in the Cobra Clutch. Let's just put it that way.
Nah, I don't know about
good.
that.
You can't be first, but you can always be next. So why not used to hear? All right, hey, another great show here at the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill. For Reggie Walker, John Tobias, Mike Pacheco, for our executive producer, Kevin Tolbert, I'm Kevin Casey saying so long for now.
You're next.